All right. Well, thanks everyone for being here tonight. My name is Meredith Dooney, and I'm the program coordinator for the Lawrence Library in Pepperell. And I'm very pleased to welcome Sarah Thornington. We have somebody joining. Just a second. Here we go. And Sarah Jane Thornington is a marine debris artist and portrait photographer. I've never heard of a marine debris artist before. I thought that was the coolest thing. And she's actually the current artist in our gallery at the Lawrence Library. Her exhibit is called Hope is Not Passive. And that's actually on display here through May 7th. Sarah grew up in Roxbury. She later moved to Cape Cod after graduating from photography school in 1986. For years, she would walk the beach with her dog and return home with her pockets filled with trash that she found along the way. And it was this experience that opened her eyes to the sheer amount of garbage accumulating along the beach. Sarah collected trash every day for a year and documented what she found. She said, "I counted all of and cleaned and sorted a lot of almost 21,000 pieces of plastic that year." So having amassed such a striking amount of plastic, Sarah began using her expertise as a professional photographer to document the plastic in different ways. She's created flat lays and grouped them by color or by item, made woven bowls using ghost gear rope, created mosaic designs and monoprints. And currently she is working on 2 series of art pieces, one of which features different birds made from litter. Her work has gained national recognition as well, with a year in plastic being awarded the Points of Light honor in 2021. So you'll have to tell us what that is. That sounds very exciting, and we're so glad to have you here, Sarah. And I'll just say to everyone, please feel free to put any questions that you might have along the way into the comments, and we can get to those as we near the end of Sarah's presentation. And Sarah, thank you so much. We'd love to hear from you.
Thank you so much, Meredith. So yeah, hi, I'm Sarah Thornington. I live on Cape Cod, and kind of like you just heard, I used to walk my dog on the beach all the time, and I just always picked up trash. I'm the type of person who's always picked up trash, no matter where it is, if I'm hiking or whatever. And I sorry, as I distract my own self, I decided to do a reverse advent calendar. And I don't know if you all know what a reverse advent calendar is, but instead of, opening up the little doors and getting a piece of chocolate or whatever, every day for the period of Advent, you give back. And so I decided to do a beach cleanup every day for that 24-day period. And whatever day I didn't do, I would donate $5 to National Marine Life Center, which is an organization here that supports sea turtles. They rescue sea turtles and seals and things like that. And at the end of that 24-day period, I missed 7 days, which now sounds crazy to me. But I got so much trash and so much marine debris. Where I live is a little tiny, it's probably a 3/4 of a mile long beach if you went the entire section end to end. And I just picked up so much trash. I was like, oh my gosh, I got to do something about this. So I decided to do this year-long project, and which was going and doing a beach cleanup every day. Now, if I'd been smart, I would have started on January 1st, because that's a good day to start something on if you're going to do it for a year. But I didn't. I don't even know what I was doing on January 1st, but I didn't. And so every day I'd walk my dog and whatever and go, oh gosh, I got to do something about that. And then one day there was this spectacular sunset, and I found not one, but 2 little army guys in the midst of all the other stuff I found. And I thought, today is the day I'm going to start my project. So it was some random day in February. And this was my first image. I posted and documented the entire year on Instagram, because Instagram is a visual media. I didn't actually start my Facebook account until well after I'd finished the project, because my aunt in England begged me. But so my plan was to pick up 3 pieces of plastic every day for a year. That was it. I thought that's a lot of plastic. And it would have been like 1900 or 1800 and something pieces of plastic at the end of the year. After 9 days, I'd already picked up that much plastic. And I thought, oh my gosh. And again, this is, I think that entire 9 days was on my tiny section of beach. Granted, in the winter when it does collect more debris, but still 9 days. And I picked what I was going to pick up the whole entire year. And so this is, after 9 days of picking up stuff, I had enough to do little tiny flat lays by color after 9 days. In the blue, you'll see there's a little, oh gosh, I've lost the word for it. Nautilus shell. I'll show you that later on. So take a peek. I found that somewhere in the first 9 days. After about a week and a half, I had so much stuff already. I had no plan for what I was going to do. I was just going to pick up trash for a year. I was going to document it every day. And I was going to talk about it. And I was hopefully going to bring awareness and make people think. And I'm a positive, perky human being. So hopefully make people laugh and just be my goofy self. And this was my plan. At this point, I hadn't actually even told my husband or my daughter, who was still living at home, that I was doing this project. I think partially because I wasn't 100% sure that I would follow through for a whole entire year. But so by 2 weeks, I started weaving bowls. I just kind of YouTubed it and figured out how to do it. And every day I'd be making bowls because I had all of this ghost gear. Ghost gear is just fishing gear, fishing rope, fishing nets, fishing line, things that wash up is called ghost gear. And so I would just wash it and weave it. And that was my hobby for a little while. And it was pre-COVID. So I was still traveling, and I took this great art workshop in England with this woman. Her name was Alice Fox. And the course was printing the coast. And every day we'd go out and we'd walk the beach, and then we'd come back and we would record place, as she said. And that did include picking up like rusty objects and things. It did not include picking up plastic, but I was still doing my project. So I was out there picking up trash and plastics and debris. And so not only did I print with feathers and rusty items and rocks and shells and seaweed and whatever else I found, but I also started printing with plastic, which is something that I'm still continuing to do. If you get to the show at the library, there are some monoprints that I've done with different things because I started it this week and just continued to love it. So that course was a really fun way. But I also would go places like New York City while I was in the middle of my project. And I am a beach cleaner. I like my debris to come washing up from the ocean, mostly clean and tidy. And I am not a fan of picking up trash off of the streets and stuff, although I do. I mean, I do, of course I do. But it's not when I'm just in New York City to have a grand time. You know, I didn't really want to spend my days doing that. But so I would find places like we went to this is the Brooklyn Botanical Garden during Cherry Blossom Festival. And I was like, oh, perfect. I can pick up my trash here today. So I would just kind of fit it in wherever I was. At the end of the year, I had only 2 countries, although I did go to England twice during that year. And but I think I had like 8 states or something. We'd been to Florida, and I've been back and forth to Connecticut, Rhode Island, and Maine, and all kinds of. So wherever I was, I would just keep going. So some days I would pick up 3 pieces of trash, and some days I would be out there for an hour and a half or 2 hours, and I would pick up 100, 200, 400 pieces of garbage. And I actually just counted it as I went. I found that the easiest way. I do still track a lot of it. I send it into places like um, um, Ocean Conservancy that has an app that you can use. I use Center for Coastal Studies has sheets that you can fill out for data so that they can keep track of the debris that is being found all around the world. But even when I would do that, I still mostly would count it in my head. I didn't count things like pieces of paper or anything that wasn't plastic. I only counted plastic. So anyway, all that to say, some days I had a lot of stuff, and I run a portrait studio. And at that point, my daughter was still living at home, and she was an athlete. So I had track meets to go to and cross country meets and things like that. And so sometimes, and even still, let's be honest, let's not go with sometimes, starting about week 2, all the way up until now, which has been almost, we're into year 3 or something, 4. I always have debris down in my basement. I always have bags of trash that need to be cleaned, need to be sorted, that I have my little 5-gallon bucket that I go out with usually, or little reusable bags. And I just dump the stuff into boxes and bags down in my basement and get to it when I get to it. So one of the things that I've learned is we have an awful lot of spiders on Cape Cod. Some of that I learned through days like this weekend, not days like today. Today is miserable. But this weekend, when it was so beautiful and warm and sunny, and the marsh grasses are literally just teeming with all of these little tiny spiders. And so I found that I brought a lot of spiders home. So the stuff that would be in my basement, I would have a cleaning day. And so I'd go down and I'd just go through all the stuff. And I can't tell you how many times I'd be like, because there'd be a little spider in there. And I'd be like, oh my gosh. And so I'd like cup the little spider in a glass and I'd run him upstairs and I'd throw him out because I am one of those sorts of people. This was a photo of one of the spiders who did not make it to my house, because photographing every day, I didn't want to just photograph, here's a bag of trash. I wanted to do fun and interesting. And I'm a photographer, so sometimes I wanted to, although they're mostly all on my iPhone. But so this was a PVC pipe that they used for in shellfishing beds. And I was just photographing the sunset through it. And when I brought it up when I looked at the picture, I was like, what is that? And I realized I almost brought that little spider home, but I could see how easy it was to bring them all home. So doing something per year, the Cape is pretty mild weather-wise. I'm sure you all have been here, know about here, whatever, you're not that far away. But anything on the coast is milder. But we still got a lot of snow. And so one day it was blizzardy snow and the winds were whipping. And it was that kind of, when you go outside and it just is painful to be outside, and everything was white. I couldn't see. It was crazy. And I thought to myself, oh my gosh, I'm never going to find anything. And so I went to the marsh as opposed to going to the ocean, because at least it was a little protected by trees and things. And I see this little yellow thing sticking out of a tree. And I'm like, what the heck is that? Like, well, at least I found something. And I pull it out, and it turned out it was Wolverine, who cracked me up. He made me laugh out loud. And so Wolverine was my first mosaic, because I was like, gosh, I need to commemorate Wolverine. So I kind of became a little obsessed with Wolverine, but he is comic book sized. And I picked a comic book that he had a good position for. But that's when I started doing that. So I started doing shows in September of 2019. I was still in the middle of the project. And somebody asked me it was a brand new gallery in Hyannis here on the Cape, and asked me to be part of an exhibit, a group show on climate change. And I was like, oh my gosh, yes. And at that point, I still had no idea what I was going to do at the end of the day or at the end of the year. But it kind of pushed me in a good direction. I got to do some installations with the plastic, which I loved, and I loved people coming and talking about it and looking at the stuff on the floor. And so they have become part of most of my shows. Last year and up until, or from 2019 through 2021, because of course it was COVID, it was the Tide Falls was the name of my exhibits. And each exhibit has something new and something of its own in it. And the Tide Falls is from a Longfellow poem, The Tide Rises and the Tide Falls. And my concept was that even though kind of the ocean is, always constant, we as humans need to be better stewards. So I had a show for Plastic Free July in Connecticut. And then I had here on the Cape at the Cultural Center, which was the first place I've ever had my name on the wall. So I really liked that show. And like I said, each show I make something different. I started weaving things. I started incorporating snow fence. I like them all to be a little bit different so that there's always a reason to go. This was last year's Atlantic White Shark Conservancy show, and there I do kind of like a cross between art exhibit, informational sort of exhibit. So I have all kinds of things on container spills and nurdles, which are little plastic pre-production pellets, and just different things that I do there than just art, because it's kind of geared more for families. So there's a lot of hands-on stuff that they can pick up and touch. And this was my last show of that one, which was at the another library in Connecticut. So now we've come to Hope is Not Passive. And the reason that I went with Hope is Not Passive is because we need to have hope. Like I kind of alluded to, or actually said, I think I'm a super positive human being. Like I believe that it's better to be happy and to share happiness and to spread positivity. I really, truly do. I think that's, so we have to have hope for our planet. We have to have hope for the future of all living creatures. But hope requires action. Hope is not passive. Hope requires us to take part to make that future that we want come about. So that's kind of where that came from. This, I don't know if you can see, depending on what you're viewing on, but this is based on a photo that I took, a photograph of fireflies, and I did it as a not stop motion, like star trails, so you could see the lights of the fireflies. That was years and years and years ago. But when I saw they're little plastic, they're the tops of applesauce containers for kids, or little juice boxes or something. And so I was like, oh, they kind of look like fireflies. I was like, oh man, I should make them like that photo that I took. And so I actually sewed the ghost gear, pieces of yellow ghost gear, into it's an old canvas that is all warped and mangled. So I just painted over it and stuck them on there. You can't see at the bottom, there are little trees made out of zip ties. But I said when I was there, I want to be known as the crazy drink lid lady. I want every child that goes through Atlantic White Shark Conservancy and sees those dragonflies to be like, oh, hey, Mom, remember when we saw that lady and she made those dragonflies fireflies out of these drink lid containers? And the mom go, oh, maybe we shouldn't use those drinks anymore. That's what I want. I want to be that. I want to be that person. And I'm fine with that. These are nurdles. Which again they're used in almost everything plastic. And they're insidious, horrific little things. There was a huge spill up the coast of Singapore, was it? gosh, I know the answer to this. Recently, like within the last year, and just millions of plastic pellets covered their shores, which is atrocious. But I had some friends send some to me. So some of those are from Cornwall in England, some are from Southampton in England, some are from New Zealand, and they're all labeled where they're from. So again, this is not an American problem. This is not a Cape Cod problem. This is a world problem, and we are all in this together. This is just another view of, we always decorate her with a little bit of some of the debris I have. And this is one of my favorite pieces I've ever created. I created each of the little sea turtles. There are the 5 different sea turtles that we get on Cape Cod, and they're all made out of, and they're not proportionately correct like my birds are, but they are, they're the right size comparatively. So the Kemp's Ridley is this size compared to the leatherback, but they're all made with debris. And the frame is, my husband has been remodeling a kitchen next door, and it's the base of a cabinet, you know, the backing of a cabinet where the doors would go. And I walked over one day and I was like, what is that? Can I have that? He's like, no. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure I need that. He's like, what do you need it for? I'm like, I have no idea, but I need it. And it turned into for sea turtles, which was all about, you know, their listing on the endangered species list. All of our sea turtles are endangered. Also has some seagrass and stuff, but that's my favorite piece I've ever made. This year's shows are also, although I love also being a marine debris artist, I have started calling myself a conservation artist, because hopefully someday, we'll run out of marine debris, you know, wishful thinking, but we'll go with it. But also I use things like cabinet doors, and I have a photography studio that's been a photography studio since 1957. And I am super lucky that I go upstairs and I'm like, oh, I could use this frame, or I could use this frame, or I have this. Some of the pieces, one of the pieces at the Pepperell Library is a photograph that the previous photographer bought from another artist, that is water damaged and nasty and whatever. So I just turned it around, and it's the one with the fishing poles and the fishing lures. But the back side of that, if you took it off the wall, it's actually a photograph. So I love reusing stuff. I try not to, in all of my art, everything I do, I try to reuse things or repurpose things as much as possible. Obviously, I use also some of my own photographs. But so this was the first year that I started repurposing some of these gorgeous old frames that I have, which I kind of like the way they look. It is this year, 2022 is the year of the tiger. So I had to include a tiger, even though we don't really get a lot of tigers. The piping plover is part of my bird series. It was actually my first of my bird series, and is piping plover size, so it's pretty little. This is at the Lawrence Library in Pepperell, which hopefully some of you have been to, and if you haven't, I hope that you do. You got Hope. This is Hope, the Atlantic puffin, and she's mostly made out of like zip ties and strapping bands and things. But I kind of like Hope. I think she's very cheerful, and she became my she is named for the show. So she's Hope, as in Hope is not passive, but also Hope the puffin. So, you know, cool things that I find. This astronaut is from the 60s. This fire truck is from the 50s. When I said about container spills and things, there was a container spill in the 80s of beach parrots. And so, I mean, can I say for 100% that some of these are from that container spill? No. Am I in the right location to have found some of them? Yes. Are they very 80s-ish? Absolutely. So who's to say, but I go with they're from the container spill. So I love my beach parrots. I find old hairpins and hair curlers and things. You know, I love finding weird stuff like that. Um, these were when I said about the nautilus shell. So the nautilus shell was my impetus to creating these um, images that are kind of the same things in different colors. I love that part of, I always say it's kind of like a naturalist collection. Like I find things in various stages of degradation or the same thing in different colors. Like that nautilus shell, I've now found 6 of that exact same shell all over, all different places, all different colors. I think I have 3 yellows. But you know, there's straws in every color, there's shotgun shells in every color, there's pens and silverware and shovels and whatever. I just find that interesting. Those I think are in pepperell. So why should we stop using plastic? That little bottle cap says wake up. You can't read it, but we need to wake up. So plastics are made from fossil fuels and contribute to global climate change every single step of their journey. Plastic will be here forever. It is not ever going anywhere. It leaches toxins into our food and our drink. It causes cancer and hormone disruptions, and it enters our food chain. It pollutes our waterways and oceans, our highways and our communities. And it kills our marine life and seabirds. All good reasons, I think, to stop using it. So only 9% of all the plastic that can be recycled is recycled. 9%. I've read something recently that said 8%, so that's even worse. But 9% of that which can be recycled is recycled. Recycling is never, ever going to be the answer. Often I get, you know, people will tell me, oh, we're a big recycling community, or oh, my family is so good at recycling, which is fabulous. And big recycling communities are fabulous. And my family recycles all the time is fabulous. But it's never going to be the answer, because plastic can only be recycled. It's got a limited number of times that it can be recycled, which is very, very small. It's only food safe after I believe it can't be recycled one time and be food safe. So there's just such a limited end result of what can be done with plastic. And the other problem with plastic is it costs more to recycle it than it does to actually create it from brand new. So recycling is never going to be our answer. So the Earth is about 4.6 billion years old. This is there's this great video, and it's called 3 Seconds. It was a Film for Climate winner. I don't know, a few years ago now, maybe 3 years ago. So I took the first part of this from him, but if you get a chance to see it, please do. 3 Seconds. So the Earth is about 4.6 billion years old. And if you scale that to a more workable number, usable number, it's 46 years. So with those numbers, humans have been here for 4 hours. The Industrial Revolution started about a minute ago. And in that amount of time, we've destroyed 50% of the world's rainforests. So that is the guy's video. So I continued it with, if you take all of those numbers, then plastic was invented about 30 seconds ago. And now almost 13 million tons of plastic enter the ocean every single year. That's like a dump truck full every minute of every day. And if we don't do something about that, by 2040, that number is going to triple. So here's the sad part of my presentation. 90% of all seabirds have plastic in their stomach. When I first started this back in February of 2019, like being a weird, crazy plastic woman, I did a marine debris course through the United Nations and the University of the Netherlands. And I got my certificate in leadership and in marine debris, because that's not geeky at all. But so it was this huge online course, and it was translated into like dozens of languages. So obviously it had been a long time in the making, probably 3 or 4 years. But so in 2019, when I took the course, 85% of all seabirds had plastic in their stomachs. So in such a short amount of time already, 85%, 90%, so it's already gone up within no time at all. This will be every single seabird, everywhere that you see will have plastic in its stomach. My little piping plover is made out of a, please don't enter this area, piping plovers live here sign that was on the beach, broken, not usable, unless you wanted to make a little piping plover. 83% of endangered humpback whales between Cape Cod and Nova Scotia have scars of wounds caused by ropes or nets. I did a program recently at the Atlantic White Shark Conservancy, so I had to add a shark, a shark data. Almost 70% in a recent study, almost 70% of sharks that they surveyed had marine debris in their stomachs, and they are not as well, there's not as much information out there, but they have more than 1,000 documented cases of sharks being entangled in ghost gear. And 100% of mermaids have found plastic tangled in their hair. So where do you think we are? Oh, here. Oh, okay. So plastic cutlery has entered last year with the International Coastal Cleanup, which is put on through Ocean Conservancy, and they give out, they do it every year. It's in September of every year. It's a worldwide thing. People track all of the marine debris that they find through apps or through manually writing things down. So data is always a few years behind, but in I believe it's 2020 data, plastic cutlery has made it into the top 5 polluters for the first time ever in their cleanup. And that was, right at the beginning of COVID. So it's probably even worse now. COVID has done horrific things to our single-use usage. They found almost 2 million pieces of plastic cutlery in one day. That's like every single resident of Cape Cod using plastic cutlery for every single meal and then just tossing it all on the beach. So of the R's, reduce is my favorite. The most environmentally friendly product that you can buy is the one that you don't buy. Like, just reduce your consumption and the world will be so much better off. Reuse, it takes about 250 milliliters of petroleum and 3 liters of water to make 1 liter of bottled water. So reusable water bottles. If you can't reuse it, refuse it. The straw, the everything. Rethink how you buy things. 40% of all our single-use plastic use is in packaging. Packaging of the plastic stuff or non-plastic stuff. Packaging, 40% of all our single-use plastic. Repurpose. If you can do something else with it, do. The plastic industry intends to increase production by 40% over the next decade. And recycle. Never the answer, but still a good thing to do. In the US, 1,500 plastic water bottles are used every second. So one of the things that I always say, easy swaps. How can we help? What can we do? These are my tea towels. I'm not a big believer in paper towels, paper napkins, all those things. I do use them. I buy recycled, but even when I buy them recycled, they are wrapped in plastic. And so I always talk about, my tea towels. These are, one is from my grandmother's house. She died in '92 One is from Clemson University, where my daughter will be graduating next year. One's from my first trip to Iceland. One's from a trip I took with my sister. One's from when I was with my best friend. I have all these stories. So this is what I use. And my tea towels range from really special tea towels, don't you dare do anything but put water on that tea towel, to they are so grungy and nearly falling apart. Sure, you can, wipe up that red wine, or, the dog spill, or the whatever. Like, I use them for absolutely everything. And same with napkins. I am the type of person who needs a napkin at a meal. I know that I'm kind of alone in that. But the butterfly napkins, I bought those at a tag sale when I was with my mother. And every time they come out, I think about her, and she's been gone for a few years now, and I think about that day and whatever. Nobody can say that about a paper towel or a paper napkin. I make stuff out of everything that I can. My little scrubby sponge is actually made out of a chum bag, which my husband, needless to say, doesn't let me use that on the dishes. But I used to use it to wash my dog's bowl, or I use it to like scrub out the sink and stuff like that. But you can also make them out of more things that haven't had dead fish in them, like, your potato bag or your onion bag or whatever. In the kitchen, you can buy in bulk and make things when you can. You know, I'm not a big believer in like the K-cups and things that create waste every time you're using them are not my favorite thing. In the bathroom, you can use bar soaps, you can use bar shampoos or conditioners, things like that. One of my favorite things about the whole little community of people that I've become friendly with all over the world through my Instagram, who are all out there picking up stuff all the time. They put me to shame half of the time. Are all the crazy little hashtags. So these are, your little dental flosser things. And there's a hashtag flossers in the wild, because people find these everywhere. I mean, mine are usually found in beach parking lots or on the beach, or I did find one, there's this in Greenville, South Carolina, there's this beautiful bridge that overlooks like waterfall right in the middle of the city. It's a really gorgeous thing that they've created. Right on that bridge was somebody who was like, I need to floss my teeth right here, looking at this beautiful view, and I'll pop it out there. So flossers in the wild kind of cracks me up. Obviously not our most environmentally friendly choice of things that we can use. Some of it is obvious, and yet sometimes we need to be reminded. These, sadly, I did not find my little miniature people on the beach, though if I ever do, I will be the happiest camper ever in the world, because I love miniature photography. The little Oompa band were actually my mom's little miniature people. I don't even have any idea why she had them. I found them after she died with her stuff. It was like, oh my gosh, Mom, look, you have these little Oompa people. But I love doing, I started to do a series of these, but I think they might be too weird even for me. I'm not sure, but someday maybe I'll revisit them. Catch of the Day, the woman with her big fish, and the little Oompa band. But so when you're traveling, shop local, buy local. You're cutting back on all the transportation costs and all that kind of stuff. Buy your souvenirs from artists and from small places, as opposed to, something that's probably made in China that just says Italy on it or whatever. There was a study done in Norway that a large portion of our microplastics in the ocean actually come from the tread off our tires and our brake pads off our cars. And so, the old adage of ride your bike, walk if you can. We can't always do that. Take public transportation. You in Pepperell have as good public transportation as I do here on Cape Cod, I would imagine. But when you can, you should. The average woman wears an article of clothing 7 times. before she discards it, which works out great for me. You can't see me today, but I have a really nice sweater on, which was actually, this was donated by my sister, but she probably wore it twice. But I'm a huge proponent of thrift shopping and consignment shopping, because the average woman wears something 7 times and then gets rid of it. So I'm like, looks good. You know, it's right there. I need to leave time for questions, so I'm running out of time, which I always do. I got a little carried away on something. Holidays, I don't tend to buy wrapping paper. I don't use tape. I wrap things in all sorts of stuff, and they are always fun and festive. The election ballot envelope was for my best friend. She lives in England. And I was like, well, she's never going to get a presidential election ballot. But so that was her birthday present one year. And, pictures out of magazines. I get material from thrift shops and whatever. I also have been known to wrap up presents in old concert t-shirts and things like that. So, so many things you can do. If every American reused just 2 feet of ribbon every year, the amount of cloth saved would wrap around the planet by a little bow. This is my studio, my photography studio. So every holiday, I don't go to the Christmas tree shop or the Target or whatever. I make stuff out of old books. I make bunting every year for everything. And I know that not everybody's, quirky and crafty and whatever. But there are so many places that you can just go to a thrift shop and buy your reused holiday stuff. I make gift tags out of my cards from the year before or whatever. I always decorate my door for holidays with the left is with bottle caps. The right is some of the ghost gear that I found with I'm lucky that I find a ton of the snow fencing, which I think is so beautiful. I love to make stuff, so I try to, if I see something, I just try to make it out of something I already have, or in my case, often something I've picked up off the beach. So these are all made out of ghost gear. The boat on the right is made out of ghost gear. I got a book out of the library that I was like, oh, I love that little driftwood boat. I need to make one of those. The one on the left is made out of my husband's old wedding shirts. He used to come when I used to photograph weddings. He was my assistant. So they were gross, so they were not able to be donated, but they made a really cute boat for my window. So here's the takeaway. It's going to take all of us to make a change. Every little bit's going to help. I spilled my water over all of these little cards earlier. The most important thing that you can do is to vote for the planet every single chance you get. And after that, reduce your consumption and recycle whatever you can. And, beach cleanups are never the answer. Beach cleanups are never going to fix the problem. It's like, I think it was Desmond Tutu who said, you're not going to stop people from washing up on shore. I forget the thing, but basically the concept is, we don't need to pick up the stuff off the beach. We need to stop the stuff from getting into the oceans to begin with. Sorry that I did a terrible job, Desmond Tutu. I will write my quote down next time. So I told you that a while ago that in the US that we use an average of 1,500 plastic bottles every second. Since I started talking, that's 5,400,000 plastic bottles that have been used. So please walk gently on the earth. We need to protect all living creatures, including ourselves. So feel free to reach out at me. I'm A Year of Plastic on Instagram and on Facebook. I'm not very active on Facebook. I do not post every day to Instagram anymore, but I do post fairly regularly, but I'm reachable by either of those. Feel free to email me. at my email address. And if anybody has any questions or comments or whatever, I would love to answer any questions.
I'd say anyone who wants to unmute can just unmute because we have a small group. That was absolutely eye-opening.
Thank
It
you.
was.
Thank you.
It really was. Sarah, thank you so much for doing this for us.
Oh, my pleasure. Honestly, I'm always surprised because I get hung up on different spots. I'm like, oh my gosh, how can that? So hopefully I didn't ramble too much about it.
I'm laughing because I want to be on your list of receiving things because you really give out really fun gifts for people. And I must be one of the weird people because, God, I have clothes that are like 20 years old. Never mind wearing them 7 times. I don't even want to think about how many times I've worn some of them.
Right.
And
I mean, I have this one dress that I wear all the time. I say, honestly, like I might have worn it 7 times this month. It's my favorite dress. The
Mhm.
good thing about that is my daughter is now 21, but I'm like, how much are they charging for old Levi's? Oh, hang on, I have some. And she got like 3 pairs of old Levi's that go for like $250. And I
know.
sadly
It's-
don't fit into them anymore, but I still have
It
them.
is funny though, because I did give a whole bunch of things to my great nieces. Now they're in their 30s and stuff. And there are things I had back from the 70s, which are back in fashion. So there you
Right?
go. Yeah.
And like when I said about the concert t-shirt, my daughter's one of her closest friends, you know, they have everything they need. And I'm not a fan of buying things that people don't need. And I couldn't give her enough money to make it. And so I did. I gave her a bunch of, I think I gave her 3 of my old concert t-shirts from the 80s, you know,
Mhm.
like, and she, every now and again, she'll text me if she's wearing one, you know, like that's awesome.
Mm.
So there was one thing in the chat. I don't know if it was a question or just a, oh.
No, it was about the baskets. The first, it was the first shot of the baskets that you showed.
That's my
Yeah.
friend.
Oh,
I
good.
love her.
I do have a question about
yes, please.
one of those statistics that you said. So like if 9% of plastic that can be recycled is recycled, then I'm guessing, you know, the rest of it is, it's not in a position to be recycled for whatever reason, but why is it only 9%? Is it because people just throw it away, or like what other reasons are there besides the fact that people just toss it?
So I'm going to go with the biggest reason is laziness. That, yep, they just cannot be bothered.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's money. Sometimes people have to pay extra for recycling in certain communities, and some people cannot afford that. And some communities do not have free recycling. So sometimes it's that. Sometimes it's the people whipping them out the car window as they're driving by, which I have a little section. Pretty much every community has areas within them that, you know, yep, you know, Deb's nodding, you know, that we know that people, I mean, nip bottles or whatever, nip bottles aren't recyclable in Massachusetts anyway, but so some of it is that. I mean, I don't have great, and some of it's, you know, like your store shopping bags, which we don't get so much of anymore, but they kind of came back during COVID again. But so many people are like, oh, I reuse those. I reuse them for my garbage. But so then you're taking the store shopping bag and you're putting it as a, you know, in your bathroom garbage, whatever, and then you're throwing it away. Those actually can be recycled. You know, you can bring it back to the store for recycling or whatever. So, I mean, there's so many reasons. I've never been asked that question before. It's actually an excellent question. And I am geeky enough that I will probably look it up. But those are, I mean, those are some basic, but I really would go with top would be lazy.
Yeah. Do you know what percentage of single-use plastic is considered recyclable?
I don't actually know that. Because I mean, I know like a lot of packaging and stuff is not recyclable.
Mhm.
There are some places like, oh, what's the name of that? I send my stuff to them. I send my packaging to them.
Oh,
I can't think of what
TerraCycle?
What is it? Yeah,
TerraCycle?
TerraCycle. Thank
Yeah.
you. There are places like TerraCycle that are trying to figure it out. However, I mean, TerraCycle, so I get a box, you can't see me, it's bigger than that. And like this, that I put my, because all of my photos come with plastic around them so that they don't get damaged in shipping. So I buy a TerraCycle box. It makes it about a month and a half before it's technically full. It costs $125. It's not, I cram way more in there than I should because my cost margin, I mean, it's a lot of money.
Not practical for most
It's not
people.
practical, exactly.
And we used to do TerraCycle at the library, Sarah, probably about 7 years ago. We had a very active recycling where the kids would come in and stuff, and we had all the different containers. But slowly, they started cutting back on what they'd accept to where we were down to like virtually nothing that they were willing to take. So, yeah.
And which is such a shame, but again, it comes back to that there's no end market for it. So they also have to, get all their costs covered. And so if there's nothing to do, because there's only so many things you can do with recycled plastic. Honestly, at the end of the day, how many benches do we need? I have a pair of my sunglasses are made out of recycled plastic. They make phone cases, not mine. But honestly, there's only so much.
Right.
It's getting better. But it's still, I mean, it's a huge problem. It's a huge problem, which is why reduce is my favorite of all of those words, because it really does come down to, we just need to buy less stuff. We need to buy less packaging material, because we don't necessarily need all that stuff that comes underneath the packaging.
And I feel like we'll just be happier as a result anyway,
You betcha. I agree with you.
Consuming less and just having less. It's too much. It's
much
like
stuff.
visual noise. So.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in, I mean, I do still, like, I fly, I do things, I kind of go, well, I do this and this and this. So then it's okay if I go to England, or it's okay if I go visit my daughter down in South Carolina. You know what I mean? Like, I take things, but so like, I would much rather go, like, Christmas this year for us, we celebrate Christmas. It's a holiday we celebrate. We didn't buy any presents at all. We went skiing as a family. I would much rather that. It was much better,
Definitely. Yeah.
Yep. The memories you will have down the roads, you won't have whatever it is that was purchased and given to you probably.
Exactly. Of course, unless you're me, because my husband always laughs because I'm like, oh, this pen, my mom gave us this pen. Do you remember? And this. I'm a little geeky, but there you go.
Your
Awesome.
husband's very nice. I loved meeting him.
Yeah, thank
Obviously,
you.
patience of Job, right?
Yes, he does. Hey, Amy, do you have your hand raised? No.
Okay.
Awesome. Well, if anybody else has any questions, please feel free to shout them out there. Otherwise.
Thank you so very much for doing this.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
It was just such a great program to be able to offer in the month of April because of Earth Day and recycling and all of the things that we try to promote, in particular in April. So I was really very excited when you said yes to me last year when I reached out to you to do that and the art show.
Yeah.
So
thank you. Thank you. I hope that you get a lot of people come through for the show.
And I'm just going to be thinking twice now before every decision I make, in my own consumer actions. So
that's awesome. That makes me happy, And like I always tell everyone, like, I'm not perfect, and and nobody needs to be perfect. That's, we just need everybody. If everybody just kind of thinks and goes, do I need this?
Twice. Yeah.
My favorite quote that I heard was, on a scale, I wish I had something plastic. Oh, well, this is not single use, so it doesn't really count, but on a scale of 1 to this is going to be around for 500 years, how badly do I need it?
Yeah,
Isn't that awesome?
I
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Ooh,
Yeah.
all right,
I'll get
cool.
shirts made.
All
right,
right, be
well,
well.
Thanks again. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you. You too. Thank you all for being here.
All right. Thanks,
for
Sarah.
coming.
Bye-bye. Take care.
Bye.
Thanks
Bye.
everyone
Thank
for
you.
coming. Bye-bye.